Welcome to the webinar live today. It's Friday and it's January the 13th, right? So hopefully everybody's off to the races, meaning hopefully you have everything up and running in terms of real estate. It's been a busy week. I think I went to 14 properties, 15 properties, got 5 of them under contract this week. But today we're going to talk about changing market alert, and more importantly, right, we all know the market is changing, but the thing is, how do you build during a changing market? A lot of people are running for the hills. How do you build? And we're going to look at some stats today in terms of what is going on in the market, in the Chicago market, what is going on in the Florida market, and in general. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look at a little bit of an understanding of where we are holistically on the whole thing of it. Generally, if today you open Facebook, you open YouTube, you open any of those type of social media platforms, right? Beside all the craziness with crypto, besides the stock market, what you'll see is when it comes to real estate, oh my God, we're in a straight free fall, right? So what we want to talk about today is that how do we prosper? How do we look at the stats? How do we understand a market as a true investor would? Not somebody who panics, right? See, people who are on Wall Street, people who are the talking heads. When the market is great, the talking heads are going to talk. They need something to BS about. They're going to keep talking, but there is no solution to what they talk about, right? Whenever the market is great, they talk about FOMO, which is, oh my God, you're being left out. If you don't jump in now, now is the time, now is the time. We've never seen something like this before. It's amazing, right? When the market turns, then guess what they do? They start beating up the person, in this case, the Feds, about, oh my God, they're raising rates. They're going to kill everything. Everything is going to die. We've never seen this before. It's the end of time. It's this kind of nonsense, right? And it doesn't matter what kind of world event we've had. It happened in the 90s with the stock market, with the tech bust. Everybody knew that people who were investing at that time with the tech market, nobody understood it. A lot of companies were making bajillionaires. Overnight, they crashed. Oh my God, it is over. It's end of the world, right? You come 9/11, right? I mean, just an astronomically crazy event for United States, for the entire world to look at the superpower in the world and hear something crazy happens. But then guess what we heard? Oh my God, that's end of civilization. As tragic an event as that was, guess what? We have to recover. We have to move on. We did, right? Then happened same thing with the 2008 crash. It was an unprecedented crash at that time, yet the saying was in 2006, oh my God, everybody in America should have a house. Even if people are picking strawberries or working McDonald's as a fry cook, you can live in $1 million house. This is the American dream. We all knew it was crazy. And guess what happened? That brought us to 8, 9, and 10. And the question is not what the market is doing. There's nothing you and I can do about the market. What we have to think about is, hey, how do we interpret what is going on in the market? How do we react to it in a way that we build wealth with it? How do we do it in a productive way? So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. We're going to look at some stats today. I'm going to share some of the statistics from the MLS, and I'll share my screen and kind of walk you through it. So before I get into that, really quick reminder, if you're not a member of Burke Capital Investors, make sure you join the Facebook group, and you have to go in, request, and there's a couple of easy questions. The fun part about joining Burke Cash Flow, not only do it bring you tons and tons of great content, but if you invite your friends, you invite your family, you get a chance to win. Well, what do you win? You win a cruise for 2. You and your spouse, your significant other, a cruise for 2. So if you invite 10 people, you get 1 chance to win, and you get 10 more chances because you invited 10 of your friends. So it's our way of thanking you for joining, for inviting other people to build this community where we all want to do well. Because guess what? We're all in. We're all real estate investors at the bottom of our heart. And the whole thing is about, can we grow? Can we prosper? Can we all do well together? Having said that, let's get started. So let's look at kind of where the market is. So I'm going to share my screen really quick, and I want to show you guys something. And actually, before I go there, right, let's kind of look at where we came from. We came from a market, so let's look at the entire history. So we're going to look at from 2000s to 23, where we're today, right? So 2000s, the market was somewhere kind of like this. You have 9/11, you have a dip, obviously sudden dip, but then what did they do? They started making the interest rates more favorable. So you have this trade kind of this, line, which is 2006 or so. So if you are in California, what's the first signs that we know that the market is basically changing? The first signs of the market was changing was that people started getting 30 days, 60 days, 90 days behind in terms of their loan payments. And as the people start getting behind, right, in terms of their loans, they're not making payments. So the general market does not realize that, right? But guess who's realizing? All your, your Equifax, your credit bureaus, credit rating agencies, they start realizing that your default rate is basically going up in this period. Yet the prices are going up because the general public has not realized. At that time, what does your real estate agent say to you? Oh my God, it's crazy, it's offers. I'm gonna miss out. If you don't put at least $30,000, $40,000 higher than what the price is on the market, you're never getting the house. This is where the normal person is. The politicians obviously want to win the next election cycle. They want to say, oh my God, look where the economy is. The economy in my time when I was XYZ, and be it the mayor, be it the, in the state, be it the senator of the state, be it the president of the country. Everybody benefits from perceived economy because that economy sticks to you, right? So they'll take the benefit for all the good things, but they don't want to accept the bad things. So we're not blaming here Bush or what President Obama did or not did. It doesn't really matter at this point. What we're looking at it from our perspective as a real estate investor. So from a time somewhere around 2003, so 2003 to 2006 to 7, what had happened was all the normal business numbers, all the cash flows, everything went out the window. Why? Because everybody was buying properties based on one thing. Tomorrow, the real estate is going to be higher than the day before, right? And in 2006 and 7, you were even in 6 and 7, I should say, you were getting calls from lenders, right? Everybody had gone into the lending business because the buyer can't qualify, you just print more forms, you make up their salaries, you just do complete fraud, 100% fraud. Everybody knew it. The lenders, the loan officers knew it, the borrowers knew it, the realtors were in on it, everybody, title companies, everybody was in on it. Credit was easy to get. The credit card companies were giving out loans. The furniture guy was selling, more furniture, people buying more property. So everybody is in that cycle. And obviously, at some point, that's going to come to an end. Now, if you're in California, if you're in Vegas, if you're in, say, the Phoenix market, that's where the first signs hit. Always, whenever the economy collapses, what happens is this. It affects the kind of the hottest markets in the country, and then it starts gradually coming in, right? So if you're in Chicago, if you're in Cleveland, if you're in some of those types of markets, the Midwest markets, the Rust Belt of America, we are affected about a year and a half, 2 years before that. So the first place the signs of distress show up is on people's credit scores, right? Meaning they haven't made payments, and the rate of defaults goes higher than 1%. 1%, meaning out of every 100 people that have a mortgage, right? When the default rate starts going above 1%, that's considered abnormal. Why? Because 1%, the statisticians, the mathematicians have already taken that into account when mortgages are underwritten, that we're going to have a certain amount of default, certain amount of bad loans. That's already accounted for. It's like an insurance company. So what happens is that's where they see the signs. Second, people who start seeing the signs were real estate agents. Now, it's scary as a real estate agent because what starts happening? More and more properties are not selling. More of them are expiring, meaning what's happening is people are not willing to basically pay the overpriced properties. Now, what does that do? Everybody in the offices starts having office meetings. Oh my God, sales are falling. Oh no, we're going to be, pumped up, we're going to be excited, and we're going to say everything is good because everybody, including the broker, the loan officer there, the title company rep there, the real estate agents, everybody is going to make money. The only way you make money is by pumping up the market. We try to basically hold up, kind of the air in that balloon, but there's a big hole. And you can't pump enough air in just by positivity. So guess what starts happening gradually? The number of properties that expire, the number of properties that are canceled starts coming down because people have expectations that are unrealistic. So the seller's expectations are high and the buyers are not willing to meet that, and that starts gradually coming down. Now, gradually we start hearing the murmurings in the news. The default rates are up, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And gradually that mindset starts changing. Yet at the same time, still, the National Realtors Association, they don't want to see the market collapse because guess who? It's one of the biggest lobbies. Besides teacher funds, the realtor lobby is one of the bigger lobbies around the country, right? So what happens is this, that there is an incentive in all of us putting our head in the sand and hoping that nothing is coming. Yet a big storm is building. And so what starts happening is this, that sometime around this, depending on what part of the country you were in, you start seeing an inventory go through the roof, foreclosures went through the roof, and obviously demand starts getting soft, and so we start going this decline. Now here, this is where the problem is. When we're all going up, everybody's in on the party, right? It's like saying, that, hey, listen, people really, really, really got drunk, had a great old time for the new year, for the holidays, spent all your money. Guess what is going to happen, right? You're going to have a bad hangover the next day. So then you say, well, oh my God, I'm getting a hangover. And now you're basically upset because you have a hangover. Well, you've been behaving badly all this time, having a merry old time, right? Being drunk for straight 4 days or high for X amount of days. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a hangover because the body is trying to recover. It's no different with the economy. Now people say, but Andrew, do you not feel bad for people who are losing houses? Well, majority of people who lost houses, I don't feel bad for them at all whatsoever, period. In fact, they should have lost their houses quicker. In fact, they should have never bought the houses to begin with. Why? Because you know you can't afford it. You want to afford it. Right? I really, really, really want to afford a much bigger airplane than I have. But if I, just because they will underwrite the loan for me, I go and buy it, and then I can't afford to staff it, right? I have a hard time being able to put fuel in it or being able to maintain it at the degree at which it needs. And then I go blame the bank that, oh my God, they let me buy the airplane. I mean, you're going to laugh at me. You're like, Andrew, are you really that stupid? Right? What you can't blame now, if somebody is in a business where somebody who's working, let's say at Home Depot, and they're the manager over there, they're the assistant manager. Guess what? Home Depot starts losing sales. Your heart goes out to those people, and there are millions of people like that. They didn't do anything wrong. They may have perfectly afforded a home that was well within their grasp, right? Yet they lose a job. Obviously, you feel bad for those people because they did not make choices that were bad choices. But yet, because the economy got affected, their job, their economic circumstance got affected, right? But for people who were just irresponsible, I don't feel bad for them. As far as I'm concerned, is you're going to have that result, right? And we have all at points in our lives been irresponsible with certain things. I say all of that to say this, that we all know what happened, right? The market came down, and then sometime to 2012, the market started going up. And when the market starts going up, what happened was this. It basically, because of Corona, there was 30% more money. In the history of the United States, there was never this much money printed in the last 100 years. But yet, in that 2-year period, we printed about 25 to 30%, 33% more money. Now, some people say it was 25%, some people say 33%. I don't know the exact number, but clearly, it was unprecedented amount of money that was put in the system. Now, why was it put in the system? 2 reasons. Number one, we had never seen the entire shutdown of the entire world ever since the beginning of time that we know, right? And Corona was an unprecedented event. So they had to do something. Now, nobody knew how much was enough, because if they didn't do enough, then it'd be like, well, You guys made this happen, meaning the politicians. So clearly the politicians want to win votes. So they want to basically have this perception that, oh my God, we're helping. Now, when we look back at something, see the actions I take today or you take today, the judge is going to be time. Meaning 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, how we fare in our lives, that's going to be the judge to tell me if it was the right action or not. So now looking back at what happened in the last 2.5 years, we know that there was just too much liquidity that was put into the system, be it with the PPP loans, be it with any of the different things that were done to try to boost up the economy so that the shutting down of everybody and staying home of everybody did not kill the entire system, right? So my point is this, that what happened was that in the last 2 or 3 years, we had an unprecedented rise in home pricing. Why? Because they basically lowered the interest rates, put a lot of money into the system, be it for businesses, individuals, so on and so forth. And obviously, people are at home. They're like, oh my God, I didn't realize how small my house is because I need a home office, or I'm going to move to Florida and then I'm going to buy a bigger house. Not as many people are selling houses because of Corona. Obviously, super high demand, supply is less, money is cheap, hence the property prices keep going through the roof. Now, all this time the property prices have been going through the roof. There's too much demand, too much liquidity in the system, hence the property prices go up. Now the feds have to suddenly do something because it's not just the property prices. It's your food, it's your milk. We have never, at least in my, since I came to consciousness, I have never seen this type of inflation that we got hit with. And they say it's about 8 or 9%. If you look at the real inflation numbers, they're close to 13 or 14% all day long. I mean, just look at the prices where they have gone pre-COVID and where the prices are today. Having said that, what has happened is now they've basically put a damper on the market, and hence the markets are basically correcting themselves. Now, does that mean that if you have to reduce a price on a property 10%, 15%, 20%, does that mean that there's a catastrophe in the market? I don't think so, right? That if you're extremely overweight, you know you're overweight, yet for a couple days, you have to basically exercise. It's uncomfortable. It's not something that you want to do. I mean, I don't want to do those types of things either, but yet that does not mean that your life is over. It does not mean that you're going to die. It certainly means it's going to be uncomfortable for a period of time. And if you choose to be uncomfortable, you're going to emerge healthier because of the diet, because of some exercise that you're being put on. Today, as far as I'm concerned, the economy is on an exercise and on a diet. Why do I say that? Because the pricing structure that we were at was unsustainable. At the rate at which things were going, it was unsustainable at the rate at which things were going. So we have to have a little bit of a dampening of the market. I mean, when did the dampening start? It started earlier in the year. So for people who are living in the houses, if you don't have to sell it, there's nothing wrong with the market. So then how do we benefit, right? How do we actually turn this type of situation as investors into a situation where we can win? Right? So let's look at that. So let's look at what's going on in the market. So I'm going to share my screen and let's see. Hopefully this is going to be transparent and kind of easy for everybody to understand. So the screen that you're looking at, as I share it, this happens to be, this is for Chicago and suburbs. So this is a 7-county area, which is the entire MLS stats. Right? What are we looking at? So the first thing we're looking at is sales pricing for properties that each year. So if you notice, there's a peak and then there's a valley. There's a peak and then there's a valley. What a lot of times people don't understand is the peaks in a market are always going to be somewhere around the July to May part of the market, July, June. If you notice, every year, it's going to be the same thing. And guess what happens every year? Every year, if you notice, as it comes to October, as we go into January, the prices generally are going to go down. Now, we're in a colder climate. So in a colder climate, what does that mean? What that means is that as we come out of winter, meaning February, end of February is when we come out of winter, as far as real estate is concerned. People are early to put the properties in the market. People who are doing flips, if they're smart, they're putting their properties on the market. And there is a artificial demand each year. Even in a slow market, there's an artificial demand. People have been sitting on the sidelines since Thanksgiving, into Christmas, into the new year, and they're not buying. They're like, as soon as this darn winter is over, we're going to start buying. Suddenly they start coming out of the woodworks in end of February, March. So sales that happen end of February, guess when they are reported? Not in February, they're reported in March or April, maybe beginning of April, May, June, July. Those generally, starting from end of February, are the best months to sell a house. And then as we get into July, the amount of pent-up demand starts automatically dying down. Guess when most people that are investors get into the market? It's the month of March, because everybody set their goals in the beginning of the year, and it's too cold in January to go out. Oh my God, it's Chicago, right? I'm going to start maybe sometime in February. February rolls around, oh my God, it's still cold. Maybe there may be a little bit of snow outside. I'm going to start when it warms up a little bit. And then finally, people start waking up somewhere around March to March 15th, and that's when people start buying. And that's when, guess what happens? You have investors that are buying, you have homeowners that want to buy, and the market starts peaking. It peaks all the way in July and then starts coming down. So what is important to understand is what has happened each year. Now, if you look at it, each year the peaks are higher and higher and higher starting in 2012. Because that's when the market started peaking. Now, if we look at the peak up here, which is June of 22, when did the interest rates start going up, right? In the last 6 months. And so 6-7 months. And so even in June of 22, we hit the peak in the Chicago market. Now, if you look at the trough, meaning the bottom side of it, it is a little bit lower than what the bottom was last January. So what does that mean? Right? It simply means that, hey, last January, or December or January, prices came down because that's a normal winter doldrums. This year, they're going to come down a little bit lower. So now, does that mean that everything is over? Absolutely not. See, what it does is it gives opportunity for people like you and I. Today, if you go in the multiple listing service, you're going to see more opportunities today than you had last year, than you had the year before. See, last year or the year before, what was happening was this: even new investors that got into the market, if they even just bought a property and they rehabbed the property, suddenly they would make money. Any fool could get into real estate. If you did not make money in real estate in the last 2 years before the market turned, I'm talking about before the market turned, right? Clearly, you really need to examine what you were doing, right? Because it had become so simple. You buy a property, boom, the market turns and you make money. See, the real test of a good investor is not when things are all going your way. The real test of an investor is, can you make money in a down market? If you can make money in down market, the up market will take care of itself, because guess what? The market is appreciating at a pace. So last year before, the market was appreciating at a pace where even if you overpaid for the property, it would compensate for it. Even if you screwed up the rehab and you overdid the rehab, the market would pay for it. Why? Because the market was going straight up. Anybody, the pundits would have you believe that that is how things are supposed to be. And somehow it's wrong what is going on today. No, what is going on today, this is the reality of the market. See, this is where you separate the men from the boys. What I mean by that is this, that today you can go in, ask for discounts of 15%, 20%, 25% off the list price. I just got a property under contract, was listed on the market, $322,000. I got it under contract for $215,000 in an area, right? Which it would never happen last year. Why? Because the property is overpriced. Most people are not going to buy a property that needs a lot of work in it. The back end value on that property is maybe $420, but that's completely fixed up. They have the property priced at $315. If you need to do, a retail investor or a retail homeowner is going to do 80 to 90,000 work minimum. So now you buy the property at 315, you do $80,000 work in it, your all-in cost in that property is going to be 390 to 395. I mean, who in their right mind is going to buy that property because it's only worth 420 and depreciating, right? And declining. Because 3 months from now, it may, if the interest rates don't change, it's only going to be worth 400. Another 3 months, if the interest rates don't change, it's going to be only worth, 390 maybe. Now you say, Andrew, each month is passing and the property is worth less. Yes, because why? Because they're keeping the interest rates up. And anybody who thinks that, oh my God, they have to lower the interest rates, they don't. As long as if the market suddenly picks up, guess what they're going to do? They're going to keep the rates high because they want some pain in the market. Why? Because of inflation. What they're trying to do is they're trying to stem the inflation. And anybody today who says to me with a serious face that, oh my God, Andrew, well, they're just overdoing it. No, they're not. They're not overdoing it. And there's a simple reason behind it. Because the pricing in our marketplace has gone through the roof. The inflation in the marketplace has gone through the roof. Now, you can blame the Congress, you can blame the Feds, you can blame whoever you want to blame. It really doesn't matter, right? It makes no difference who you blame. The question becomes is that it is in the long term, that sort of inflation is not good for the dollar. It's not good for all of us in terms of economics. Now, if you have a lot of debt, guess what happens? If you have a lot of debt, so let me kind of explain this really quick. So let's just say you have $1 million that you have saved in the bank, right? So you have $1 million. So 1 and 6 zeros, right? You have $1 million in the bank. Well, guess what happened? If you have a 8% inflation or 10% inflation, guess what happens? Next year, your $1 million gets reduced down to only 900,000. You have another 10%, guess what happens? You lose another 90,000 in value from $1 million to this is the buying power in 2 years. Why? Because you have cash sitting in the bank. So why you might say, Andrew, this is good, right? That I had cash saved up. See, what happens is inflation hurts people that have a lot of savings. Now, I'm 100% for savings. I'm for being really, really liquid. I'm for having tons of equity in your properties. But here's what happens to people who have real estate and who have a little bit of debt. I mean, think about it. So if I had $1 million in debt and there's 10% inflation in it, guess what happens to my debt, right? My debt number may not necessarily come down, but what happened to my property? Suddenly, if I had, say, 20% equity in the property and there's inflation, what happens to the property price? See, the property price will go up by 10% while my debt remains the same. So what happened? The person who had savings became poorer, while at the same time, inflation helped me pay down my real estate quicker because I got a bigger equity position. Now, this is not to say that you should be in a position where you suddenly get upside down because the interest rates go up and you get yourself in a bad position. But what happens is this, as a real estate investor, when we're in times like today, right? What has happened in the last 2 years, not only did we make a lot of money doing flips, but we got a lot wealthier. It may not feel like it, right? It may not feel like it, but guys, think about this. Right? So let's just say you're spending a year $60,000 for your family, right? $80,000 for your family. Now, last year, you may not have noticed it, but to maintain that same lifestyle, you had to spend 8 or 9% more. So you're either cutting down somewhere else or you're not saving as much, right? And that's for all of us. That's for you, that's for me, for all of us because of our basic spending that we do, be it eat at restaurants, be it gas, be it whatever it is. Yet, if you have a ton of real estate, the value on your real estate went up. Why? Purely because of inflation, not because you did anything special or you did anything else. So what becomes important is now, if we look at what's happened to the list prices, right? If you look at it each year, it's something interesting. right? Your list prices go down in December, and guess when they peak? They peak sometime in May, June, July. That's when they start peaking each year. If you notice, this is normal, that they keep going up and up and up as we get into summer, and then they start basically going down in terms of the list prices, right? What's happened to the market time? And this is interesting. The market times, if you look at it, each year have continued to come down because this is inversely proportional to the market getting better. As the market has gotten better, meaning it's going up, the market times has come down. We're talking about Chicago market. Why? Because the inventory in the market in Chicago, you don't have a lot of new construction going on. So relative to the demand, the inventory has come down. So each year, year over year, your demand, meaning number of days on the market, average number of days on the market, has kept coming down. Obviously, in the last 2 years, it went through the roof. Now, if we look at the list price, meaning percentage of list versus closed, meaning what was the percentage of list price versus what was the percent. So the way it's calculated is, let's say a property is listed for 4,000 and the property sells for a 90% of list value. So that would be basically a 10% loss compared to the list value, right? Not loss, I should say, is it's sold for 10%, or it's sold for 95% of list, or it's sold for 98% of list. Well, last couple of years, we had properties that were selling for 100%, 101%, 102% of list price. We had never seen this in the history of real estate, except in that short period back in 2004, 5, and 6, right? So if you look at what is going on here, and if you look at where the numbers are, 96%, 97%, 97%, 98% each year, it's been climbing as the economy was getting more stabilized and was getting better. Look what happened April, May, June of 2021. April, May, June of 2021, literally every property that was being listed was listed for more, and every property was selling near on a median for almost 100% of value, right? Until we kind of come here where it goes even above that number in 2022, and then it starts collapsing. Now we're again heading towards what is reality. And this is going to be something important for all of us to pay attention to. Now, if we look at, how about contracts to close, right? How about the square foot price? Now, if you look at the square foot price, it's a similar sort of a situation where you have per square foot somewhere around 102, somewhere around 110. It goes up, and each year it's continued to go up. And now that number is going to come down. So what it does is, it doesn't necessarily, the property prices coming down is not necessarily a bad thing. It's actually gives people like you and I an opportunity to be able to pick up properties at reasonable prices where we can actually accumulate properties in A areas, meaning in good quality areas today. You can pick up properties that are at a reasonable price. Now, what about Florida? Right? Because Florida is a little bit unique. Florida is a little bit different than than a market like Chicago. So we have two markets. We have an office in Florida. We have an office in Chicago. So in the Florida market, what is happening? Well, in Florida, you have obviously a market which has a huge amount of influx of people coming in. Right? A lot of people from out of state going to Florida. State income tax, different politics is a little bit different. It's growing like no tomorrow, has continuously been growing, and it's a warmer part of the country to live in. Plus, you can buy a lot newer houses. But if we look at the Florida market, what is happening today? Well, you take Tampa, for example. The market has cooled down. It's no different than any other part of the country. If you look at all the builder inventory that was going on in Florida. So if you look at it, the rentals in Florida have not cooled down. The rentals in Chicago haven't cooled down. They're hotter than hot because now interest rates are up, so people need places to live. They can't afford the property to live in because even though they want to buy the property, even though the property today is cheaper than it was 3 months ago, then 6 months ago, or 8 months ago. Like the same house 6 months ago you could buy for 300. Today you can buy that same damn house for 270. The problem is this: your interest rate is up. So people don't buy houses, people buy payments. Remember this: people do not buy houses, people buy a payment. So if somebody could afford, at the time the rent was 2,000, you could buy the property 1,500. Today it's reverse. If you buy the property, your numbers have gone up and people won't qualify. And the qualification to buy a house, it is higher, meaning when it's a FHA loan or a lending institution is looking at it, you have stricter standards than to rent a house. Hence, what happens is people will end up paying $2,100 and $2,200 for rent because they have no other choice. Yet for $1,800, they can't qualify to buy the house because their ratios are off, right? It's unfair. This has always been that way, but this is just what it is. Now, what that does is that puts us, people like you and I, in a very unique position. It puts us in a position where you and I can buy real estate. The one game changer in that today is that today, 3-4 years ago, we did not have this available in as much of a market. There was no awareness of it, which is Airbnb, right? If you're doing wholesales in today's market, guess what? You're going to have a hard time, because your back-end buyer is not going to be as plentiful as they were 7 or 8 months ago. So today you're going to have to change your wholesaling strategy. If you're doing too many D markets and C markets, you're going to have a little bit of a challenge. You're going to have a better time in a B market and an A market today. Why? Because A market, meaning affluent, aspirational markets, there's still demand. B markets, solid markets, still properties are selling and there's a strong demand. But guess who gets hit in an economy like today? The people who are in the D market, meaning where there's a lot of too many challenges all put together, makes for a disaster market. In that market, people get economically hit, right? People who live in a challenging market, they also get hit. So what happens is, in a market like today, a market which is a C plus market, right? Trending towards a B, meaning bread and butter, right? It's going to basically slip down to a C or C minus market. Right? A market that was a C minus market is going to slip down to almost a D market, because as the economy gets tougher, people who have higher incomes generally are not going to be affected as much. Are they going to be affected? Absolutely. Are prices going to get affected? 100%. Right? Very expensive houses, they're not going to sell as much. Why? Because suddenly the mood in the market has changed. The customer confidence, what the confidence index that they measure, that has trended down, and that dictates pricing. Because if we feel great about ourselves, then we don't feel a problem splurging. But if we don't feel so good about things, guess what? We have a problem surging. We have a problem splurging. My point with all of this is this: that today is a perfect opportunity. Today, I'm looking at more properties that are going to auction, more properties that are going to, that are on the MLS. Why? Because I can find a lot more deals. Last year, we were focusing much more on off-market stuff. Why? Because anything that was on market, you just could not negotiate good pricing. Right? Today, if you're buying properties with some sort of a seller finance, with some sort of subject to, with some sort of a creative type of financing, again, that has become much more viable. Why? Because the interest rates are up, so it makes sense. See, as the market changes, it will make people who are doing well do extremely well, right? Because if you look at how money is made, people make money doing something in the good times or the bad times. But they build a bloody fortune when they can double down and buy when the markets are changing. Meaning, when the markets are going down, that's where people go from rich to being extremely wealthy, because they ride it on the way up, right? This is the time to get in. Now is the time to understand how real estate really works. How do I pick up properties for a discount? Because if you can't find properties in today's market for a discount, you clearly should be watching more of these. You should be paying attention. You should be learning more. Show up at the 3-day. And today I forgot to thank our sponsors, which happens to be Larry Brzezinski from Finance America. If you're looking for a loan, talk to Larry. He's a great lender. I'm bugging him every single day because he's doing, I think, 6 or 7 of my loans. I gave him another 3 or 4 today as we speak. So having said that, invite your friends, family to be a member of Burr Cash Flow Investors. It doesn't cost anything, and you might just win the free giveaway that we have for a cruise for 2, you and your spouse, or you or your significant other. Super excited for the market because, guys, now is the time. If you've ever been positive, now is the time to double down and let's go to work. Talk to you soon.